Humboldt County Public Health Officer from 1993 to 2011. She and her husband, Alan Glaseroff MD, shared a family practice in Arcata for 28 years and raised their 2 children here. They were recruited to Stanford University in 2011 to establish a primary care clinic for Stanford employees and dependents and their families who have multiple chronic health conditions. The clinic improved care, lowered costs, and achieved top rankings in patient satisfaction with adoption of a new model of team care. Sounds like we need that here. The lure of life in Humboldt brought them back north in 2017, and she's working on Life Care Humboldt, so she will not have to leave Humboldt County again. We welcome you back, and here's Ann.
Great. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. Welcome. I'm glad to see so many people that friends and whoops. Okay. I'm going to open this up in the right way. I want this to be in the Thank you for your patience. Actually, it might be a good time to ask people how many of you were present. I recognize a lot of names, but how many of you were present at the OLLI brown bag presentation I did last year?
We get lots of responses. All right, we'll give it a couple more seconds and then we'll end the poll. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share the results. It looks like about 67% of the people here today were not present last year in January, and about 33% were. There's the results.
Good. So I'm trying to get this to show my whole document. Maybe Joanne can help me. She's here in the other room.
It actually looks okay.
Oh, you can see the whole thing?
Yeah, just click through it.
Okay, great. All right, good. That's good to get some. Here we go. Okay, so we can, thank you for that. And I'm gonna get rid of the results here. Okay, I'm here to talk about Life Care Humboldt and aging well in Humboldt County. And this Life Care Humboldt is a new nonprofit, and you'll hear a lot about it. But those of you that hear already that some people have to leave early, so make sure to jot down our website because we'll be asking you to participate in a design survey. I'm going to present an introduction to Life Care Humboldt and tell you who we are and why we're doing this, and talk a little bit about what life plan communities are, and review some of the properties that we're looking at now, which is of great interest, I'm sure, to all of you, and explain some of the design survey that we've been doing, because we're really trying to get people to participate and help us plan the community so we build something that people will want to come to. And then I'll review how you guys can help. So if you have questions, comments, and ideas, type your questions in the chat area, and we'll address them along the way or after the PowerPoint, and Kim's gonna help me keep track of that. Thank you. And you all, just in case you need to know, the chat button is usually at the bottom of your Zoom screen. By now, a lot of us have gotten quite used to Zoom. So as you guys know, and particularly since COVID, we've all had an experience of how living at home can be isolating. And I, as a family practitioner in this community for 28 years, my patients got older as I got older. And a lot of them, many times I'd be making home visits to someone who could no longer drive, and a lot of their friends were gone. And loneliness was a real thing there. And so what we're proposing maybe is an antidote to that kind of situation. And also people's money is locked up in home ownership, and it becomes, the longer you stay in your home, the harder it is to leave. So there is a tsunami of older people in Humboldt County. 25% of Humboldt County population is over 60. Housing's tight. And so the question is, where can people live and still get social connections and support? So what Life Care Humboldt is working to build and support a nonprofit, inclusive life plan community here that's focused on active, mindful, and engaged aging in Humboldt County. And we really want to get the Humboldt County twist in it, because I think there's a lot of things about Humboldt County we all love, and we want to incorporate those aspects into the community. So you may know some of these board of directors, but Patty Berg was our assembly member. And before that, she's been involved in a lot of organizations, but in particularly the Area 1 Agency on Aging. George Williamson is one of the principals at Plan West and has a lot of experience in planning issues. Pat Gersick was Dean of the Health Sciences at College of the Redwoods and had been quite involved with the Humboldt State University nursing program, amongst other things. Joanne Schuch she's actually helped me with this PowerPoint, but she's interior designer and also was one of the people who really got the Redwood Coast Village going. Greg Orsini recently retired as the community services director in McKinleyville. Mark Chatton has also had a number of roles in our community, but more recently retired as the tech person behind the Redwood Capital Bank. And Kirk Gerard was the director of planning at Humboldt County for a number of years. So we have, the first step took us about 8 months, but to become a nonprofit tax exempt corporation. So Life Care Humboldt would help us stay close to Humboldt County. And I've talked to a number of people, and that's really one of the things that people say is, it's beautiful here. We love Humboldt County. We don't want to go. And many of us have friends that lifelong friends or long-term friends and families here. And, but there's an overall context for senior housing in the county is that the Humboldt County Housing Plan has identified the growing population of us elders may be the #1 housing challenge facing the county in coming years. And the background of that also is the county, it's figured that they need to build close to 3,400 housing units in the next 8 years, but they only gave permits for 492 total in the last 5 years. So it's clear that that actually, if we could build a really awesome community, those seniors would like to live there, and many of us live in our 2 to 3 bedroom homes, that would free up homes for younger families. So this Life Care Humboldt is a social investment we need to make. So aside from all the personal interest we have in it, it's the right thing to do for the community. And our focus from the board is to build a mixed income, affordable community. And this makes it, there's a double challenge. There are not that many new life plan communities in rural areas like this. And then to have a community mixed income is also a challenge, but one we're willing to take on, because there are a lot of people who've worked in our community, say in the service industry or in the arts, who may not have been able to buy their homes and accumulate assets enough to move in to life plan community otherwise. We did hire a research group to do a feasibility study, and which gave us some encouragement. They figured that we could support 150 independent living residences. So these are cottages and studios and various kinds of living residences 36 assisted living residents, and 36 memory care and advanced nursing care places. So this is figuring on the number of people that, who are 75 and older, and that population is growing over the next 25 years. Also figuring that there are a number of younger families who bring their parents here. And some of you may have arrived in Humboldt County under those circumstances. But the point of the life plan communities, and particularly the community we're planning, is that people can live active, independent lives in a community, but get help when you need it. So we actually started this process by doing some design interviews, human-centered design interviews of 14 people for several hours about their experience with aging and their thoughts ahead. And many people had experience with their parents or older relatives, but a lot of them, even though they were approaching older age, and that of course is a moving target, but approaching older age, hadn't really given much, all that much, or didn't like thinking about their own experience. And I say they had the Niagara Falls approach, where everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, and then boom, you don't have to think about it anymore. But it can be, and many people have this idea that you can have somebody move in with you or move into your, mother-in-law apartment or whatever. But finding somebody you can trust, somebody you can get along with, and somebody with skills to care for you in your home it's a real plus if you can do it, but it's really hard to pull it off. And if you need, full-time care, it could cost up to $20,000 a month, which is, a real blow to most people's finances. And then, both of my children now live in the area, but so they no longer live far away, but by the time I need care, they're going to still be, raising their own families and working full-time probably, and won't be able to necessarily take care of the kind of care that I might need. So we have many assisted living facilities in Humboldt County, and a lot of you have had experience with them. The study that we did took in consideration the existing facilities we have, and still felt there was room for more. The Timber Ridge and the other assisted livings run in the range of $3,000 to $6,000 a month, and skilled nursing, of which it is might be more challenging for some of us. You can get your Medicare will pay for it for the first 60 or 90 days if you're referred from the hospital for rehabilitation and getting ready to go home. But if you have to stay longer than that, you either have to pay out of your own money or until you spend down enough so that you're on Medi-Cal and you don't have your outside assets. So, and apparently approximately 80% up of people in skilled nursing in Humboldt County are on Medi-Cal. I say there's not an alternative nonprofit life plan community within 200 miles. And many of you know people who've moved to Medford or Santa Rosa or beyond to join this kind of community. There is a community being formed now in Healdsburg, which is it's a partnership between Kendall, a Quaker community, and the San Francisco Zen Center. So it's made a very interesting combination. It sounds like a fascinating community, and I've been following its development because a friend of mine's the president of the board. But being in Healdsburg, it's going to be quite expensive for people. I think we can do better than that. And even moving to Healdsburg, which is a pleasant place, you'd leave your friends and community behind. And I always say that we've really lost some very important people who had great connections and contributions to the community. And just because you're older and retired doesn't mean you can't keep giving and being engaged and being important to your network. So the idea of a life plan community that has independent living, assisted living, and memory care all in one location is you move into the campus, so that's the word I like to call it, and you don't have to move again, even if you or your partner needs more care. So it's aging in community, and let's see, next. So one of the things I want to point out is our concept for memory care is not like a hospital-like setting. We're looking to build small houses, or greenhouses is the name of it. Basically it's a 12-bedroom home. Every resident has your own private bedroom and bathroom, and that way, you know, if you want to see people, you can go out into the living room and the kitchen. But if you don't, you can stay in your room. But meals are taken together, and the residents contribute to the household according to their ability. And I really fond of the Montessori model that's been adapted by some memory care units where everybody's valued for their contribution. The staff are basically about 3 people, and they get to know residents really well. And so you're not just a person in, you know, room 34. You're somebody who, you know, might have been a professor at the university, or an accountant, or a teacher at the college, or in a elementary school. They get to know who you are and who your families are. The fact that there are a small number of actually reduces infection risk, and our board members have been following along with Leading Age, which is a national association of nonprofit life plan communities. And they're really, the small, or the greenhouses or the small houses are really getting a boost now because of COVID. And not only that, the small number of staff know you well. They're not rotating through to other facilities, and they have more feeling of accountability to the residents. And furthermore, the staff are not off in a little office. They're you know, doing their work. They're in the living room and the kitchen, and so they can see the doors, and you know, reduces the need to lock doors to the outside. So many people move into life plan communities when they're younger, so they can live with support and social connections. And that's what we're hoping that people will do. And I realize that those of us who have homes here and been here a long time have a lot of attachment. But it might be like me, I've got 2.5 acres, and I can do it now, but I can see the day where it's going to be too much, and my house is going to be too big, and I'm going to want to, you know, be right down the block from somebody else. I first visited a life plan community in 1973, and it was a Kendall Quaker community in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. And I've actually since then met somebody from Humboldt County whose mother or aunt was at that same facility. And to me, it was like a college campus. There was gorgeous setting. There was a string quartet playing and a poetry reading happening, and it was like, I wasn't that far out of college myself, and I really felt, oh, this is a great way to age, you know, spend your aging years. And I actually went and visited the same Kendall community last year, just to see if it still held its attraction. And it certainly did. And one of the things that I met a woman there who was a master weaver, and she had set up a weaving studio, and they had 30 looms. And she was teaching people, and there were other people who knew how to weave, and they really had a great weaving community going there. And that was an example of how activities are generated by residents. You know, I've talked here in Humboldt to a woman who's a woodworker who said, you know, I want to bring all my equipment and set it up so that we can keep doing this and teach each other things and learn from each other and interact, and do this without the worry of maintaining your home or hiring help. And Joanne, I love this picture. Thanks for inserting it. I feel like that some days. So actually, I'd like to know how many people have been to our website. Can we do a poll again? We're doing okay time-wise.
Yeah, let me make a poll for that. I don't have one for that, but I will.
Okay, or just ask how many people have gone and done the design survey on our website.
I have the house party question ready to go.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, we'll do that one.
How many people have been to a house party for Life Care Humboldt? Okay, well, we got a lot of work to do. Thank you for that.
Okay, well, in that, share the results.
I'll tell you about what house parties are. They're a good way to get some more direct information. I assume that the 15% of you have been there, we have people fill out evaluations and they recommend it. Okay. Reese Hughes and Amy Wacky came to house party and they were kind enough to let us know why they support Life Care Humboldt. And we actually have a number of testimonials, we call them, on our website. And they really feel that, as many of us do, that it's difficult to imagine leaving Humboldt County, but their house will be too big at some point. And they'd really love to have an option like Life Care Humboldt so they could stay local as they age, near the people and vibrant community they love. And I see Julie Fulkerson on here. And she's actually one of the first people I talked to about this, because she and I share friends who have moved out of Humboldt County and because they needed the kind of service that a life plan community has. And they had adjusted, these people have adjusted to the new surrounding and attempted to make new friends, but it really was sad for them to leave their friends behind and their connections and the community events, including arts, theater, and music, education, Humboldt State, the marsh, the pool, birding, and endless walk in nature with lifelong friends. And so Julie feels that we can really, that our team can have the expertise to make it a life plan community happen that fits our community values, flexibility, good health, and sustainability, and that it's a needed option in the community. So it's nice for Julie to know that we're planning. And Roberta Duggan, I think I also saw her today, that she had an unexpected health event when her late husband developed early onset Alzheimer's disease. And he became unable to live independently or work outside the home. And she said she transitioned from wife to wife caregiver. And he ultimately had to reside in a care home where she went as a visitor and managed his medical care. And for 2.5 years, he lived like that. And she saw the opportunity to bear witness to people and their families who found themselves in unplanned situations. So she, as a recent retiree, is thinking about her own future and is interested in Life Care Humboldt. She feels like she could live in community with others, but have her own privacy in a residence, that she wouldn't have responsibility of home maintenance. She'd have access to medical services, and I'll circle back to that after I get through here, and be prepared to transition to assisted living or memory care with minimal disruption. And then peace of mind also for her family, her adult children, who would feel that she'd been well taken care of. So she feels like her physical needs and intellectual interests and new friendships, she's all excited about that, and connected, active, and engaged living. And I just want to say something. I know that healthcare and access to healthcare is a big issue in Humboldt County. And we have a number of ideas and ways that we can help people get the kind of healthcare they need. And the minimum that the one program that when I went to Stanford, my husband, Alan Glaseroff, and I were involved in a program called Stanford Coordinated Care. And we gave primary care exclusively to people with complex chronic health conditions and help them navigate, learn about self-management, encourage their self-management, and navigate the morass of specialists. And actually down there, it's not a problem with access to specialists. It's like I said, people had specialitis. There were so many specialists. But in what we can, this care coordination model, how it would transfer to Life Care Humboldt would be, if you need to go out of the area for specialty care, which a number of us do, then our care coordination can make sure that you get to the right place at the right time, in a timely fashion, and all the information and X-ray reports and lab reports and other reports that you need get there with you down to the specialist, and that all the information that the specialist generates gets back here to Humboldt County. So that's one thing we can do. There are also other partnerships that we can engage in that might make sure that we have a pipeline into good primary care and can help people navigate that. So life plan communities generally function on a system where you pay an entry fee, and this can be partially refundable. And Joanne Shook did research, and the entry fees average between $87,000 to $525,000, and actually it's quite a bit more at the Enzo community in Healdsburg. But that's a one-time fee. There's different ways to structure it, and we have yet to determine what the entry fees Life Care Humboldt will be. But typically these communities, if you have a non-refundable entry fee, it's lower price initially. But the money, and if you pay more upfront, then a percentage of the entry fee will be returned to your family in the event of a move or a death. And so that it's a different way of structuring it. Our goal is to make sure that our entry fees are affordable and pegged somewhat to the housing values in Humboldt County. So an entry fee, it's not that you buy the unit, but it basically secures your independent living unit and lifelong care as needed. The independent living units come with the basics. There you can move in and have all the appliances and things. The units are not owned by the residents, and they are maintained by the community. You can remodel and have your dog there if you want, but so you get a lot of, it's not like it's not your living unit, and also life plan communities, one of the big pluses that they offer financial security to us and to our families. And that once you are in a life plan community, your fees are relatively fixed. And I'll explain that some more in a moment. But I've been paying attention to how in other communities people pay for the entry fee. And one is to sell your home. And then also I've heard of a gentleman who refinanced his home and then leased out his home. So he still owned it, but that generated the entry fee equity. Or you can choose a lower entry fee with less going to your estate, or you can choose a smaller living unit on campus. There's other alternatives, I'm getting to them. That some communities, including the Enzo in Healdsburg and all the Kendall communities, have companion foundations that assist low-income residents. And long-term care insurance, which some of you have, can certainly pay for the assisted living, any kind of home health that you might need in your independent living unit, and also would pay for memory care. And that some children might be willing to help pay for their parents' entry fees and monthly fees to help assure their financial security. So there is, on top of the entry fee, there's a monthly fee, and it's based on the square footage of the unit that you move into. And it's comparable really to what it costs to live in your current residence. And Maggie Banducci actually requested a number of people fill out the cost calculator that's on our website. And people were surprised pleasantly, I think, to find that that their cost that currently costs them to live in their own homes is comparable to what it would cost you to live in the monthly fee in a life plan community. And then you don't even have to worry about when your driveway needs to be redone, or your septic tank goes bad, or your roof needs to be redone. You don't have any of those kind of experiences. And a second person in the same resident adds only a few $100s to the monthly fee. So there's companionship that pays off. So what's been happening nationally? The life care communities, and even in the face of COVID, continue to grow. And I think that people are attributing that people feel isolated. They feel that, for example, the life plan community, you don't have to worry about where you're going to get your groceries or your pharmacy items and things. All of that, it can be helped. They feel safe. They can. It's easy to social distance and see your friends. Also, as I said before, we now know that social isolation, the sense of social isolation to varying degrees. And I've read several studies that say living in a life plan community provides significant health benefits. So what are we looking at? One of the possibilities is in the McKinleyville Town Center. And you may have seen this in the newspaper. There's actually 47 undeveloped acres in McKinleyville. And I hate to say it, but it's behind the Safeway because the backside of the Safeway is not very attractive, but the rest of the land is. There are plans to, for some mixed use development, and there's a community process going on now, but at least part of the land has been designated to medium density housing, and which we would be. And the process is moving slowly along, but we're on the roadmap for that. And Ann Pearson owns the property, and she is supportive of our concepts. There are 3 lots in Arcata that if we were fortunate enough to put them all together and manage acrobatics of that, and it's west of Alliance Road, starting about 11th Street, and that would be exciting possibility as well. And we've already met with the directors of city departments about what kind of obstacles we might have to overcome for that. Green Diamond has approached us about property in Eureka, and which we're starting to investigate, and it's kind of behind hospice and Planned Parenthood, and that's promising. Certainly, you have access to medical care in that community there. And then Kirk Kramer owns property more out in Cutton. And we're going to be, some of our board members are going to go actually visit that tomorrow and look at the property and look at the surrounding community and see what the amenities there. But we really want to design the community with you. And part of what we want to know what amenities you'd like, what type of independent living would you prefer, and if you don't know how many square feet, just take a guess and give us a range of, whether you want a studio in a building or you want your own little cottage. And really, there's an opportunity to fill in, your ideas about what it would take to get you to move out of your current home. So we got a question going on. Have you participated in the design survey? Or have you visited the website? You all see these results that 35% participated in the design survey, and 66% have not. So my goal is at the end of this presentation to have 100% of you having participated in the design survey, and about half have been to the website. So that's great to hear. we're getting some great ideas. But here's so
I'm
far.
gonna go ahead and end this poll. Thank you.
Great. We've got some work to do to get you to your thoughts on the design survey. So far, 272 people have completed the design survey, and they have 81% want some kind of indoor exercise facility, 73% wanted a library with comfortable seating, 63% want picnic areas, 61% arts and crafts studio, a space for visiting practitioners at 58%. That means like, you know, chiropractor, doctors, nurse practitioners, physical therapists. Rental space for visitors is 49%. And what I would like to, after talking to people, what I would love to have is to build a 4 or 5 bedroom home, which the residents could rent out, or if they have an extended family come to visit. And if the residents aren't renting it out, we could Airbnb it. Indoor pools, 46%. It can be expensive to build, and maybe initially we'll can partner with a pool if we're located in a neighborhood with a pool nearby. A dog park for 41%. And as I said, that we plan that pets would be allowed, although I think that there might be some kind of resident committee that would decide about the range of pets, or your dog would have to be friendly, I think. A theater, performing arts facility, 38%. This is interesting. What we asked about dining services, and there's over, 62% wanted sort of smaller cafe or bistro dining spaces, as opposed to a large formal dining room. And I think what this would do, it would offer the opportunity to meet the palate of people. And I've had one gentleman participated in a house party and said, I really like spicy food. I want to make sure that you can get it. Or other people want vegetarian, so I think that actually by having several dining spaces, we could deal with that. We could cater to that interest. And just a thing about dining, usually the independent residents eat 1 meal a day in a common facility, and the rest are on their own. And the assisted living and memory care, they get fed 3 meals a day. Our plan that is that we would love to have a 3 to 4 acre farm abutting or adjacent to our community, and then hire a farmer instead of an institutional food service. And there's models for that. The Mad River Hospital has a farm of which they feed the patients and the staff and the adult day health. And Potawat Village right next door also has a farm. So I think we're all gotten used to good Humboldt County food, and we can address that. So we asked about whether you want a big single story, multi-story structure with all the services under one roof for administration. And 55% said yes. And then other people said, no, make it these smaller single story structures. This is a very interesting and really important to us when we evaluate the property options, is that 61% said they prefer easy walking distance to market, coffee shop, and some services. And 39% felt that transportation would, if we had adequate transportation, that they wouldn't need to be right next door to it. And regarding transportation, that 59% they said they would love an in-house shuttle service. And I envision, a lot of us go to Center Arts, let's load it up and get us there. We won't have to worry about parking. They can drop us off right there, so we don't have to walk too far up the hill, and other kind of attractions that we can get transportation to. And we are going to make some allowance for personal vehicles and parking. And public transportation from a designated location on the closest public street, 13%. And I don't think that many of us are used to public transportation or having it be accessible. Although one interesting thing about the McKinleyville property is the county's in a process of establishing a loop that would go up Hiller Avenue, down McKinleyville, Railroad, and back down Central that would go very frequently and make that loop, which would make it really attractive in that part of the community. As I said, we didn't put the farm on the design survey, but 83% said they want some kind of community gardening space and a place to grow food, trees, flowers. We've also been suggested that participants in the California Native Plant Society is, why don't we do the landscaping with native plants? And that sounds like a good idea to me. So I would definitely want you to fill out this design survey. The more people that we have fill it out, the better we'll know what you need. We're somewhere down the line, we're going to be hiring an architect, and we prefer to have an architect that'll do what's called a design charrette, which will get some of you together to really talk in depth about what kind of community you'd feel comfortable living in. But in the meantime, you can help. Tell your friends, including friends out of the area, and that this would be really helpful, and particularly if you have friends who are involved in community groups who would like, I might want to post a part of one of our newsletters, or just to let them know. We're going to have to draw, we are going to have to draw from out of the area to fill up our community. And I do think we actually in our initial feasibility study, we also looked at 40 to 50-year-olds who earn $100,000 or more, figuring that their parents or older relatives might come live here rather than have the younger people move out to take care of them elsewhere. And that's certainly my experience in my family, having had my mother and my in-laws move from the East Coast to here. We are soliciting donations. We're actually in the next week or two going to have another financial study done about how much money we're going to need when. It obviously costs a lot of money to build a community like this. We're not going to have to fundraise it all, but we will need money initially to pay for some planning costs and more consultants and initial architectural plans, and in the realm of several $100,000. We will need investors or initial investors to get somewhere between $5 and $10 million to get it. So we really have the plans firm and set where we're going to be and what we're going to do and how it's going to look like. And we can, we're in touch with some social impact investors who charge about 15% interest. So we would really love for some local people to step up as investors at a slightly lower rate. That would help us keep the cost down. And then ultimately we'll be eligible for bonds and municipal bonds or tax exempt bonds. So, but then, so we not going to have the whole, $90 million or whatever it is. It's going to be a huge construction project. We don't have to raise all of that. One thing that those of you, I see a few older people on photographs here, but if you have an IRA and you don't need all of the distribution from your IRA to live on, you can make a qualified charitable distribution, which is pre-tax, so directly from your IRA to a nonprofit like Life Care Humboldt, and that would be a lovely option for us. We're going to need some help with fundraising. We have some really great volunteers so far, but I'm always looking for more. One thing is we need to get the word out, and if you can connect us with a newsletter or a group you belong to, and you can email us at lch@lifecarehumboldt.org. Or you could attend or refer friends to or host a house party. Now, house party idea came up out of this person-centered, human-centered design research that we started with, interviewing the 14 people for 3 hours. And we realized that we needed to have more people. Not everybody considered a life plan community in their future, simply because we don't have them here. You know, it's not a common thing for people to do. And they also don't really like to talk about aging and what they're going to do. So we set up house parties, and because of COVID, we've been doing them by Zoom. But we get 6 or 8 people, and some of them, somebody invites all their friends and lets me know, and we have a couple of facilitators who present a PowerPoint and lead a discussion. But other times we just take people and put them together, and that's actually kind of fun that people meet each other through these Zoom parties. And it's an hour long, and it really is a chance to get more information than you can find on the website and ask your questions. So we'd love to hear from people, and at lch@lifecarehumboldt.org or on our website if you're interested in a house party. And we're also going to need volunteers, and we have a volunteer data entry person and some volunteer a skilled writer who helps us with our publications. And we're as things move along, we'll have more for volunteers to do. So you can sign up for updates. Joanne Shook has been wonderful at we won't bug you, won't clutter your inbox, but about once a month, she puts a very well-written, attractive newsletter out. You can friend us on Facebook, and I'm trying to get a conversation going there about the community design so we can get a little back and forth. And as I said, you can complete the design survey at lifecarehumboldt.org. So now I'd like some help answering questions.
There are a couple questions, Anne. One question is it okay to take a second shot at the design survey?
Yeah, I guess so. We have actually one person filled it out 4 or 5 times.
One question
different ideas now, huh?
Right, after seeing a little bit more. One person asked, do the monthly fees include meals? But then I think you answered that question, but maybe you want to answer it again just so everybody can hear.
Right. It typically, and we, as I said, I think it's going to take us some 3 to 5 years to get this going, and optimistically. But so we don't know everything it's going to be, but typically in life plan communities, the independent living, people who live in the independent residences have 1 meal a day together, and that's good for socializing. And then in assisted living and memory units, it's 3 meals a day. And actually one question that comes up with people, well, what about in COVID? What did these communities do? And basically they delivered meals right to your door. So you still got fed, but, and you didn't have congregate living, but, and they figure out other ways to keep people connected.
That sounds great. A couple more questions. Could you tell us more about the medical care possibilities?
Okay, good. As I said, that the care coordination I think would be really useful, and that's something I know that we can, fit in. That we have. That's Alan Glaseroff and I have a lot of experience setting up that kind of assistance for people. It's conceivable we could have a space and recruit a family practitioner there, or a nurse practitioner. It's possible that we could partner with a clinic like the Open Door Clinic. Both the Arcata and the McKinleyville locations are close to Open Door Clinic. The PACE program, some of you are familiar with, it's a really wonderful program in Eureka, affiliated with the senior center there. And it has a combination of day health, adult day health, and home visits, and really a multidisciplinary, connecting to people just to do whatever it takes to keep people out of skilled nursing. And that would be, if not a direct partnership with them, we certainly would benefit from their model and their experience in the community. So those are some of the options we're considering.
Yeah, and one of the questions does ask, how concerned are you about the quality of the local hospitals?
I think that, you know, you can get good care here for certain things. And I think that's you know, I have gone to local hospitals myself. I think that the care is loving and personal. But I do think for certain things that we go out of the area for specialty care. It was just not available here. There's been huge strides, and particularly since COVID. And one of my family members has needed a specialty consultation at University of California, San Francisco, and they're allowing her to do that on Zoom. So telemedicine is really taken off, and you know, there have been many people working on it, including Open Door as a real pioneer on it for years. And then suddenly, almost overnight with COVID, it's really taken off. So I think that really, particularly if people have assistance in how to access care like that, it can really make the local situation a lot better.
Great, thank you. In addition to donations, do you know of any state or federal grant possibilities? I heard you say something about bonds, but this looks like it's asking more about possible grants. Sure.
Well, obviously we're checking with foundations, and and certainly after we get this next financial study, we'll have a much better idea how much money we need when. There, through the county planning department has encouraged us to apply for community development block grant for planning because of the primacy of, or the importance of senior housing in the community, and also that because we're looking to have a mixed income housing, and that would help us hugely along the way of planning. And because that's really what I said, that the initial funds, that's what we're going to need.
Right, and speaking of that, there's another question that says, could you talk about further about investors, or when are you looking for investments? What's rate of return, that kind of thing?
We have to negotiate the rate of return, but some hopefully under 15%. You know, it's just and again, we're not. When are we going to need it? I think like 6 months to 2 to 3 years from now, and that the duration would be, or you know, until we get the bonds, and hopefully then we could pay it back at that point.
There's a couple questions. One, like, can we make reservations in advance, or also how is the process for selecting? Is it going to be a lottery, and how are you handling diversity?
Great. We haven't set a process, but I can tell you what some communities do, and particularly Enzo. And I know I talked about this at the January OLLI talk, is that they had like a buyer's club where people gave $1,000, which is refundable, which the community couldn't use for, you know, its research and architect and thing, but they just put it in an escrow account. But that showed investors that yes, there's a, you know, they actually had 950 people gave, and they only have maybe 320 slots available, you know, or units available. But it shows investors that yes, there are people who are really serious about this. So at some point, when we get the plans firmed up, we'll be asking for that kind of, and they worked off that as a waiting list, basically. The people who signed into the Buyers Club got into the waiting list. They also have in their community, a number of the low-income potential residents are from the Zen Center, so there'd be monks and you know, things like. And I don't know how they work that, but that was a way which. So right now we don't have any waiting list. I can't wait for that day though.
Yeah, here's another question. Is there an alternate plan if new construction is not possible? This person read that an article about converting malls that are no longer viable could be a possibility for housing like this. Yeah, no, the New York Times had an article today. And frankly, I'd rather not live in Bayshore Mall or in the Kmart in McKinleyville. I think we can do better than that. But, you know, I do think we're fortunate enough
that there are property options. And I think that at the cost of converting a mall might be the same almost as building new. I don't know. We'll have, it's certainly not ruling it out, but it's not our first choice.
Will residents, excuse me, will residents be able to add their own flowers and shrubs to their units?
Their own what?
Flowers and shrubs?
Oh yeah. Actually, the Kendall community I visited, there was like this zone, and I don't know whether it went 5 feet or 10 feet out in front of your house. And that if you planted there, you maintained it. If you didn't plant there, then the community planted and maintained it. We'll also, certainly if we are fortunate enough to have a 3 to 4 acre farm, residents will be able to participate there. And you can either, might get you access to free produce, or you can plant your own things or have your section of it. And certainly flowers and shrubs and things will be part of it. We'll have to exact what people can plant where. I think that's a decision for the future, but I do think that a lot of us here in Humboldt County like to have our hands in the dirt. And not that we want the responsibility for it all the time. We can no longer bend over comfortably, but I think that's something we can accommodate.
All right, nice to have that as an option. This question is, how many units would be wheelchair accessible?
100%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's one thing that that is different about, we actually, we looked at Scotia, because most of the town is for sale, and the Scotia Inn is really interesting building. But the houses have narrow doorways, and they would need total remodel. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't seem worth it. But that's one thing that a life plan community can offer you that most people's homes don't have. They're not 100%. It's called universal design, and that's a given. Yes.
Yeah. Is the buy-in fee per person or per unit? It's it's not twice as much for a 2 people habitation. So there might be a slightly higher fee, but again, like the monthly fee, it's an increment as opposed to a doubling. And then do you have an idea of what the total population might be? Yeah. Probably, around 220 to, depends on how many couples there are and pairs of people there are, but I'd say like 220, 250. It seems like there's a few figure actually that we'll be employing 60 people probably, and we plan to be good neighbors, and we plan to help, foster volunteerism and community engagement and intergenerational activity. So we hope that it's not going to be 250 people walled off just playing with themselves. There seem to be a couple questions. One, like, can we access HUD? If is a buyer club, is it, is there an option for lower income families? We are planning a option for low income families, and we have a number of people, our board members and outside of the board, who are working on that. And there are a few models for that. The HUD funding is one possibility. Some of the low income housing, you have to have a separate corporation that provides the low income housing from the others. And we really want to have integrated services. So we're looking to keep our development costs down and look for other ways to provide assistance. But and then in terms of then there are people who don't have $1,000 to put in a buyer's club. We're going to have a alternate pathway, I think. Yeah, I think that speaks to the next question, which was low-income people wouldn't be able to do the buyer's club. So it seems a little discriminatory as it can speak to that. So it sounds like you are looking at other options. Right. Do you have an age range for the residents?
think we said 60 and up, but the average age of people move in are 75 and life plan communities. But, you know, I'm hoping that people move in, you know, when they're still active and can, you know, have fun there and contribute. We're going to have to make it a really fun place to get people to, to move out of their homes and, you know, in a proactive way.
Right, right. Is there a plan for how people would get to the Bay Area for medical care if they needed to go? Do you have any ideas on that?
No. You know, other than we could partner with the ambulance, the air ambulance service. That's you know, as a group we can partner. You know, I haven't worked that out. I understand that that's an issue, and I think that that's sort of planning down the line. And a lot depends on, again, I hope to engage the residents in issues like that. And I don't know enough about the cost of providing that services or facilitating that service to give I'd love to say, oh yeah, we'll take care of it, but I can't.
Let's see, how about would heat, electricity, internet, is that all part of that monthly fee?
Yes, you basically pay one monthly fee, and that's your rent, your utilities, and maintenance. We're planning on having tech help because it's actually, I'm still on the Stanford faculty from my time there, and it's the thing I'm most reluctant to give up is the tech help. So we definitely have to have tech help. We're also will be, you know, emergency assistance and assistance with basic medical coordination and, you know, recreation classes, all of that's included.
That sounds fabulous. Do you have an expected timeline range for an actual opening? Do you have any like dream?
Oh, well, my vague answer is 3 to 5 years. So hang in there. A lot depends on, you know, planning processes move slowly. Have any of you had anything to do with that? And in terms of, you know, permitting and all of that, the county planning department's been very supportive of us in the community area, and the Arcata planning department has voiced support, but I'm not naive to think that it's always easy.
Right, there's lots of details to follow up with. Will there be a doctor on staff?
A what?
A doctor?
Not necessarily, but we, you know, I don't know that 250 people could employ a doctor, but will ideally have some type of relationship with primary care provider so that people can get facilitated. And particularly if people move in from out of the area, you know, it's really hard, even if you've lived here for a while, to get primary care. So we're going to have to investigate those challenges and grease the avenues to, you know, getting care for people. Yeah.
Are you considering at all, you showed several different potential sites. Are you considering opening more than one facility, if you will? Like,
one at a time.
One at a time.
You know, well, it's actually, and we're committed to building we would love to build out the independent units, assisted living, memory care all at once. You know, some consultants have suggested, oh, you could just build the independent units, and, you know, but people, you can't plan when you're going to need more care. So we want to develop it all at once. And if the community is a huge success, then, you know, the board and the management will have to decide what do we do? Make the community, you know, more amenities there, or make another community? I don't know. You know, that's a way down the line. That's an interesting question. Might have to be somebody else other than me.
and maybe you already addressed this, but is there a governing body of residents, like a homeowners association or something like that?
Well, this is how I envision it. There would be professional management, and there will be a board of directors, and not necessarily all residents. And then there will be residents governance committee, which I think things that regarding what activities or you know, pets and policies and like smoking or non-smoking, you know, that kind of thing. I think that residents can, is my thought that, and we obviously haven't said anything, but I really feel like that older people need agency in their lives. You know, if you, retiring and for us is not, it's not like getting put on a shelf. It's entering into a new stage, which also the New York Times had stories about that recently. And you know, so we want to really have people have as much control over things that on their day-to-day lives as possible. And if there's interest in that, I definitely think it would be a good idea.
Another question, would employees receive the benefit of residency once they reach age 60?
Oh, wait, that's another question. I don't know. That, you know, some of these life plan communities have employee housing, and by that way helping to ensure sort of a mixed community. I'm not sure whether that would be within our, you know, that would magnify the cost somewhat for us, and it depends on what we're looking at for 13 to 15 acres and then plus the farm. And you know, even though there's a lot more land in rural areas, there's not necessarily a lot of big parcels that are close to amenities and shops and things like that. So I don't know, maybe that would be a good idea. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and how will you choose the property? What's the process of all those options? What's the process for how you might choose?
Well, Kirk Gerard, thank goodness his planning experience, has drawn up a property selecting matrix, you know, where it gives points to certain things, and including, you know, the cost and the difficulty anticipated in the planning and the amenities. And, you know, that's where the design survey is going to, that we want you all to fill out, is going to help us guide what property works. And, you know, so anyway, we do have a matrix. We haven't adopted it finally at the board, but there was general consensus that you know, it's about 30 issues, and we give, you know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how many points does each get? So I think but it'll have to also be, I think a big factor will be if the property is available on our time frame.
A couple more questions have come in. If there are 2 people in a unit and only one needs to move to a higher care level, does that trigger another buy-in?
Not that no, I believe not.
And then would the monthly fee include moving into a care unit?
They're structured different ways. And our plan is we would like to keep it, the lifelong cost relatively stable. Again, that's something that the consultants are going to have to say, you know, make an advice for that, but that we are committed to, you know, a life plan community that way. If you pay, you know, it might go up for somebody who comes in 2022, will pay less than the person comes in 2030. But if you come in 2022, your fee should remain in the same ballpark for the rest of your life. If not, now, if you want additional services, say if your health would determine that you would go into assisted living, but you prefer to live in your, you know, live in your own unit, you may have to pay additional for, you know, nursing services or home aides or something like that. I don't know how we'll settle that out, but that's only potential, I think, for actually your costs going up. If you either wanted to remodel your unit in a fancy way or get extra services.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I do see a comment that interestingly, we now know there's a larger than average influx of people leaving other parts of California. They will likely bring a certain level of wealth with them and a place to live, like your vision. So there's that potential as well.
Right. No, and actually, I know people looking for houses now, and the prices are going up, and you know, 70% of the people buying homes are from out of the area. So I think that'll help in the marketing perspective. You know, you need to fill the units. I think that it may also make that people, those of you who own homes, your home values may go up and give you more equity into if you choose to buy into a life plan or Life Care Humboldt. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses to that, aren't there?
Yeah, indeed. Are fees set for life, or can they rise?
That again, our concept is that once you set in, your fee will be relatively stable for the rest of your life. That they, not to say that somebody who that we don't have to raise the entry fees for other people coming in at a later date.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or any comments?
Well, I want to thank OLLI members and for this is my second time here, and I want to thank all of you for attending. And I really feel like there's a wave of support in our community, and I am an optimist in general, but I continue to think that we can really create a wonderful facility here. And actually, I talked to a woman from the San Francisco Zen Center, who, she put years of energy into getting the Enzo community going in Healdsburg. And she said that the attraction of the Zen Center, was bringing a lot of their people are signing up much faster than they expected. And I think that we can have, the Humboldt way. I think she said by having a farm, you're called an agro-hood. So I think we can do something that'll not only keep you guys here, but just sort of be a really wonderful Humboldt type experience.
And I want to thank you ever so much for doing this. It is delightful. And as you make progress, you're welcome to come back to speak with us again, particularly when you have new things and new information to present, because I know everyone's clearly interested, as we are. And so thank you very much.
I'd like people to raise your hand if you think you can, when you log off the Zoom, go right to lifecarehumboldt.org and take 5 minutes and fill out this design survey. All right, good.
I think a lot of people are willing to do that. And I want to mention that next week on November 2nd, the day before the election, we hope you are all voting, that Dr. Caroline Connor will be talking about disability and comorbid diseases that are associated with migraine. She's given a wonderful course on migraines, and they've been excellent. And if you haven't had a chance to take it, I hope you do in the future, but you get a freebie next Monday. So come on board. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so very much. And thank you to Ann Lindsay and all the people who are working with her, including Joanne Shook, who I know is a backbone of this, along with Redwood Coast Village.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Ann, real quick before you go, there is one other question that came up. Are you taking Buyers Club donations now?
No.
Not yet.
I wish. I think you really have to have a more of an idea of what people are buying into. But if you sign up for the newsletter, we'll let you know when we're doing it. If you can sign up for updates on it's one button on the website.
One other question. Are you seeking investors now? And if so, can you set it up sort of as an annuity? OLLI does that. And I wondered if you would be in a position to do something like that so that people could invest now rather than going out to private investors, and set it up so that they'd get an ongoing return. Anything would beat 0.02% at the bank.
Yeah. Let us know. We not this week, but hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be doing that. I think that would actually really help us out a lot. And, we want to have a real solid business plan before we, not that we don't in general think that we can do things, but we want to get a little more definite than that. And then we'll If you could send me an email at lch@lifecarehumboldt.org, I'll give you a call, or we'll keep in touch with you on that basis. That would be wonderful.
I mean, even the model that Brios used, where people invested, I think, $1,000 for their renovation, and they get a 3% return. They were able to do that. I mean, there are all kinds of ways of doing this. And if we can attract local investment, I think it would be fantastic.
I agree. I agree. That's wonderful.